Hello, my name is Frisk, Ambassador of Humans and Monsters, and this is really the first time I'll be posting anything on the internet. A lot, and I mean a lot of people wonder how I am what I am today, and what have I done to become Ambassador? What have I done to become the hero of monsters? And here I'm gonna try to answer some of those questions while detailing the journeys I had through the underground. Before my first journey through the underground, I was a very mentally unwell, depressed individual. Grew up alone, never had a family, and somehow just survived. Maybe because God shows me to. I don't know. Frankly, I'm not complaining. I didn't want to live. I was tired of everyday life, and, well, nobody was treating me well. I was an outcast of society. And one day, I thought of killing myself. And looking back, one of the weirdest ways possible. I heard a lot about Mount Ebott, specifically how many children had gone missing up there. And I decided that I would walk up there. I would climb up Mount Ebott, and I would disappear. The journey was pretty easy, actually. Dare I say, kind of a fun hike. Of course, I was miserable the entire time, and it was raining, but I could care less. My focus was on jumping down that giant hole in the mountain I kept hearing about, and I did just that. Landed on a couple of branches, rocks, cliff ledges, and then I landed on a patch of golden flowers that seemed to somehow soften the fall. I was bleeding from my head, and a lot of bones in my body were seemingly broken, but much to my dismay, I survived. Even with the bones that were broken, I was still able to get up and start walking again. Maybe this mountain would help me find true peace or something stupid like that. I didn't know it at the time, but what lied beneath this mountain was going to change my life forever. Now, I'm not going to explain my first journey in a conventional method or anything, because that would take way too much time, explanations, and probably involve way too many drawings, more than I could make for one night. But I'll just talk about the main staples of my adventures. The first one of those staples of my adventure were the people I've met. The first person I met under the mountain wasn't actually a monster, but the spirit of a deceased human known as Kara. They offered to guide me through this place because they seemed to know a lot about it, and I accepted their offer. And little did I know, me and Kara were about to become lifelong friends, let alone partners. Second person I met down here was a talking flower named Flowey. At first, I thought they were a hallucination, and then I learned they were very real and were an active threat. I hated them at first, but my opinion of them would eventually change, but that would take a long time to do so, and frankly, most of the stuff about them is a story for another day. Then I met Toriel, the caretaker of the ruins, she called herself. The ruins were the first major area of the underground I journeyed through, and being honest, it was kind of a lame start, but things were going to get much more interesting soon enough. Toriel always cared for me, and the many children that found themselves in the underground, all of which she failed to protect from the rest of the underground, and she failed to protect me from it too. We got in a big fight over it. She casted fire magic, which I didn't have the hardest time dealing with, and once she just accepted the fact that I wasn't going to stay with her forever and let me leave. Next people I encountered were really odd. They were the Skelebros, as they called themselves. 2 skeleton monsters. Sans and Papyrus. Kara found them really endearing, and, well, yeah, they were too much for me. But I still kind of liked them. They were endearing. Papyrus with his puzzles, and Sans with his relentless puns that I got sick of immediately, although Kara found them endearing. Their banter was always funny, for the most part, and something about Sans. I knew something was going on with them. Something deeper. Like there was more he knew than what he let on. Anyways, moving on from them, there was Undyne and Alphys. Alphys was just this total weeb who I found really annoying up until my 3rd journey. And Undyne, who's this captain of the Royal Guard of the Underground, and she actually hung out with Papyrus a lot, and he was trying to get into the Royal Guard, begging Undyne to train him, which was pretty funny. And, yeah. Waterfall was genuinely a peaceful area up until she showed up. Well, every time she showed up a lot there. As well as this annoying-ass monster kid who I hated, who would always obsess over Undyne, and I just didn't like him. He sucked, and Kara agreed. Next was Mettaton, who was a robot Alphys built for entertaining the underground, which I actually found him really endearing. I liked Mettaton, despite him having the intent to kill me always. Always. He was always out for blood, which, well, yeah. Kara was terrified of him, which I understand, and Kara always dreaded any encounter we were going to have with him, but nothing really happened. Maybe that's a good thing. The other main thing that really made my journey was the areas of the underground. The ruins were boring and secluded, but fascinating at the same time. Snowdin was genuinely a really wholesome place at points. Other times it was a kind of a barren wasteland that kind of instilled dread in me every time I went to those corners of Snowdin that felt like the middle of nowhere. Waterfall was quiet, beautiful. The place had so much mystique, and there was even one place I visited with that annoying monster kid where we could see the king's castle. More on the king later. Hotland I have a love-hate relationship with. Never liked warm temperatures. Never did. But the people there were genuinely nice, entertaining, and there were some cozy spots. Specifically the Mettaton Resort. That place was a genuine hellhole for some reason. I don't know why, I just don't like crowded spaces with people. Don't worry, I'm better with people now. Then there was the core, the energy source for the underground, and man, that place was a doozy. There was so much there that just caught me off guard. From the really strong monsters, to all the machinery, to all the lights. Mettaton's stage was here, and fighting him here was an absolute nightmare, but was also one of the most fun and entertaining moments in any of these journeys. And then there was the king's castle itself. Quiet, secluded, basically a carbon copy of the ruins, but all gray. Everything feeling like a distant memory. And then I met him. When I heard about Asgore, mainly from Toriel, I was intimidated. I was expecting someone who ruled over the underground with an iron fist. I was expecting him to be a human-killing machine. But what I got instead was the hardest slap of reality possible. I didn't find a tyrant. I found a sad, troubled man who deeply regretted all of his actions. And I felt for him. When I first met him, we both knew I was gonna have to die to help this man accomplish his dreams. King of the Mountain, the ruler of monster kind, was promising me he was gonna make my death quick and painless. And I kinda wanted that. But there was something inside me, something in my soul, that said otherwise. My determination, Kara called it. My determination wanted me to fight back against him. So, we did. We fought. We fought Asgore with all we had. He was much better at using fire magic than Toriel, and he was extremely strong, but we were able to lower his guard and beat him. I felt bad for him. Maybe us humans are the villains. Maybe we shouldn't have gone to war with the monsters. Maybe we never should have sealed them underground. But it was too late for that. I offered him mercy, and he said we could become a family. He could hook back up with Toriel, and monster kind could be content with living underground. But that was a short-lived idea, as something terrible happened. Flowey, that at the time evil son of a bitch, came up to Asgore and killed him when he was at his weakest. Flowey then congratulated me for weakening Asgore enough to the point where Flowey could actually get the right moment to kill him. Flowey was trying to grab the human souls that Asgore was going to use to break the barrier. And he wanted those souls to do something much more sinister. Become the god of the verse and gain ultimate control over everything. Before the fight started with this abomination, Flowey would be taunting me with all of his power. The TV screen usually displaying his face would glitch out and show me disturbing images relating to my past, back when I lived on the surface, before this journey even started. It referenced failed suicide attempts and civil danger alerts, and every negative thing that could have been tied to me and my reputation living on the surface. Eventually, the fight started, and I was hopeless. The power he had over the verse means he could undo anything, and never thought I would even get close to grabbing the upper hand in this fight, even with my determination. And then, that determination saved me. I thought all hope was lost. I thought everything was ending. I thought the world was ending. I thought the verse was going to be gone. I thought everything was going to be controlled by Flowey, brought into a new age of destruction and terror. Stuff that wasn't even in my control. But then, my determination. As I said, it saved me. And my determination is what the human souls Flowey had absorbed recognized my power and determination, and they decided to help me with this fight, completely turning the tide. I was obliterating this thing. I was able to gain the upper hand of the fight and make Flowey's life miserable. Not that I relished in that feeling, but every single attack that Flowey had to suffer felt satisfying on my end, and eventually, I defeated him with the human souls. And then, Flowey returned to his normal form, and I tore it apart. I still had that worn dagger on me that I found in the King's Castle, which Asgore actually named New Home, which, yeah, forgot to mention, now I know that Asgore is notoriously bad at naming things, which is kinda hilarious. Anyways, I still had the worn dagger, so I tore Flowey to shreds, like he deserved. Little did I know, that action would lead me down a dark path of killing the innocent, which, that'll be a story for another time. Until then, stay determined.